It is hour one. You are watching someone load 12 cases of water into a cart and you are thinking, smart. You are wrong. Water's gone in 40 minutes. It was always going to be gone in 40 minutes. But 11 of the other 16 things disappearing around it right now are things you never thought to look for. 17 categories. One predictable sequence. The same pattern in every blackout, every storm, every grid failure in modern history. The 99% are buying comfort. You are about to learn what the 1% actually take off the shelf and why the difference matters before hour 6 ends. The same 17 things disappear. Not similar things. Not roughly the same categories. The exact same items, in the exact same sequence, in every city, every climate, every demographic. Baltimore 2003, New Orleans 2005, Puerto Rico 2017. Texas 2021. The details change. The list does not. That consistency is not coincidence. It is a behavioral signature, and once you understand the engine producing it, you stop being surprised by any of it. Here is the engine. The average grocery store does not carry what you think it carries. A standard regional supermarket stocks between 30,000 and 50,000 individual product SKUs. That sounds like abundance. It is not. The entire inventory system is calibrated for predictable daily throughput. Not for surge, not for deviation, not for any consumption pattern that differs meaningfully from yesterday's. The supply chain behind that store is designed to replenish what sold in the last 24 hours, arriving in the next 24 hours. There is no buffer. There is no strategic reserve. The store is a pipe, not a tank. And when demand spikes even modestly beyond normal, the pipe empties. Run the numbers. A mid-sized grocery store sells roughly 3,000 units of bottled water per week under normal conditions. That is approximately 430 units per day. In the first hour of a confirmed grid event, documented consumption surges run between 800% and 1,200% above baseline. That is not 430 units per hour. That is 3,400 to 5,160 units per hour against a shelf that holds, at full stock, maybe 600 units in the water aisle. The math does not require a calculator. It requires only the willingness to look at it honestly. But the rate of disappearance is only half the pattern. The sequence matters more, and the sequence is driven by something that has nothing to do with what people actually need. It is driven by 3 distinct waves of purchasing behavior, each triggered by a different psychological state, each emptying a different category of the store. The first wave is emotional. It hits within minutes of the announcement and burns through its categories in under 2 hours. The people driving Wave 1 are not thinking strategically. They are not calculating caloric requirements or storage capacity or shelf life. They are responding to a threat signal in the most primitive way the human nervous system knows. They are acquiring objects that feel like safety. Water feels like safety. Light feels like safety. Bread feels like safety. The emotional wave is fast, dense, and highly visible. It is also, from a strategic standpoint, largely misdirected. The items Wave 1 strips from shelves are the ones with the least long-term survival value relative to their psychological weight. The second wave is practical. It begins around hour 2, after the emotional buyers have cleared out and a different population enters the store. People who have stopped reacting and started thinking. They are not buying comfort. They are buying capability. They want things that work when other things stop working. Manual tools, fuel, communication equipment. This wave is quieter, faster per individual transaction, and far more operationally significant. The items it targets are the ones the emotional buyers walked past without recognizing. The third wave is operational. It arrives around hour 4, and by then it is competing for whatever remains. This wave is driven by people who understand systems: water treatment, power generation, fabrication, information. They are looking for infrastructure inputs, not finished goods. They are the smallest group and they find the thinnest shelves. Some of what they need is already gone, purchased by Wave 1 buyers who had no idea what they were holding. Understanding the three waves tells you something critical about timing. The window where a prepared person can move through all 17 categories and acquire each one before stockout is approximately 20 minutes long, starting from the moment the event is confirmed. Not 20 minutes sometime today. 20 minutes from confirmation. After that, you are competing within individual waves rather than moving ahead of all three. The difference between those two scenarios is not effort or money or luck. It is reconnaissance. It is knowing, right now, before any event occurs, exactly where each category lives, which store carries the deepest inventory, and which route gets you there first. This is not prepping. It is the same cognitive work a logistics manager does before a product launch, or a trauma surgeon does before a mass casualty event. You preload the decision tree so that when the moment arrives, you are executing a plan rather than making one. Making plans under time pressure with incomplete information, while emotionally activated. That is the definition of the 99%. Executing a plan you made yesterday, calmly, with complete information, while everyone else is still processing. That is the 1%. The 17 items on this list are not random. They are not based on a Prepper Forum's recommendation or a government emergency management checklist. They are derived from documented post-event consumption data, retail stockout records, and behavioral pattern analysis across multiple large-scale grid failures over 4 decades. Each item earned its place on the list by disappearing, repeatedly, before hour 6, in events separated by geography, season, cause, and duration. The pattern does not care about the specifics. Earthquake or ice storm, coastal or inland, the list holds. What you are about to see is not what most people grab. Most people grab 9 of the 17 correctly. The obvious ones, the emotional ones, the ones Wave 1 clears in the first 2 hours. The other 8 are the ones that separate a functional 6-hour response from a 6-week operational capability. Those 8 are what the 99% walk past on their way to the bread aisle. Here is the full sequence. Starting now, here is what the first wave looks like from the inside. It is not chaos. It is not a mob scene. It is a pattern, mechanical, repeatable, documented across dozens of grid events spanning 4 decades. And once you see it the way the 1% sees it, you cannot unsee it. Item 1. Bottled water. Gone in under 40 minutes at 3 times normal consumption rate. Every grid event, every city, every decade. Same result. The behavioral driver is not thirst. Most people have running water for the first several hours of any outage. The driver is control. Water is the most primitive safety signal the human brain knows. Buying it feels like doing something. 40 minutes. Gone. Item 2. Batteries. Specifically, AA and AAA. The average store carries a 6-day supply of batteries at normal turnover. In a grid event, that supply is gone in 90 minutes. People are not calculating watt hours or device requirements. They are not thinking about runtime or power draw. They are buying light. Darkness is the second most primitive fear after thirst. Every flashlight, every remote, every child's toy that might provide distraction, batteries are the currency of that anxiety. 90 minutes? Gone. Item 3. Bread and shelf-stable carbohydrates. Bread, crackers, cereal, pasta. Wiped inside 2 hours. This one is partly caloric logic and partly something much older. Bread is the universal symbol of sufficiency. Medieval famines were measured in bread. It is the first thing distributed in a humanitarian crisis and the last thing a family gives up. When people load bread into a cart during a crisis, they are not feeding themselves. They are performing a ritual of normalcy. The problem is, bread has a shelf life measured in days, not weeks. The 1% does not fight for bread. They let the 99% have it. Item 4. Cash. This one surprises most people, but it should not. ATMs run on grid power. Card terminals run on grid power. The moment a serious outage begins, the entire digital payment infrastructure becomes decorative. The average American carries $11 in physical currency. When that reality hits, every ATM within 3 miles becomes a competition. Banks report a 400% surge in ATM withdrawals in the first 90 minutes of any major outage. Cash is not a luxury in a grid event. It is the only transaction medium that functions when everything else fails. Get it right now before the machines go dark. Item 5. Manual tools. Not power tools, manual tools. Hand-operated can openers, manual water pumps, non-electric cooking equipment. These disappear from hardware stores within 3 hours, but they disappear quietly. Nobody films themselves grabbing a hand-operated can opener. Nobody posts about it. The transaction is practical, not performative. But the logic is brutal. Every electric appliance in your house becomes a paperweight when the grid fails. The people who stocked electric can openers and electric water dispensers discover this problem approximately 4 days into the event. By then, the manual alternatives have been gone for 72 hours. Item 6. Specific over-the-counter medications. Not all of them, specific ones. Pain relievers, fever reducers, antihistamines, and electrolyte supplements are stripped within 4 hours. The behavioral driver here is fear of vulnerability. People who feel fine buy fever reducers because they are imagining a scenario where someone in their household gets sick and the pharmacy is closed. They are not wrong to imagine it. The mistake is waiting until the grid fails to think about it. A standard retail pharmacy carries roughly a 48-hour surge supply of these categories before stockout. Item 7. Matches and lighters. Not the camping gear section. The impulse buy checkout aisle. Stripped in under 2 hours, usually before the camping section gets hit at all. This is where the pattern starts revealing something important about Wave 1 psychology. People are not thinking about long-term fire production, they are thinking about tonight. The immediate future is what drives Wave 1 purchasing, not the week ahead. Matches and lighters are gone because they solve a tonight problem. Light, heat, cooking, without requiring any planning. This is the behavioral signature of emotional buying, not strategic buying. Item 8. Baby formula and diapers, even among people who do not have infants. This item disappears because it triggers a specific social anxiety. The idea that children are suffering nearby creates purchasing behavior that has no rational basis in personal need. Stores in grid events routinely see formula purchased by households with no children under 5. The unit economics are irrelevant to the buyer. The emotional calculus is simple. If this is available and someone might need it, taking it feels responsible. Understanding this dynamic is useful because it tells you something about crowd behavior you can predict and position around. Item 9. Maps. Paper maps. Road atlases. This is the first genuinely counterintuitive one, and it signals the shift from emotional buying to something slightly more operational. GPS runs on battery. Cellular data becomes unreliable within hours of a major event as towers overload. Paper maps do not require power, signal, or subscription. Hardware stores and gas stations sell out of them in the first 4 hours of any serious grid event. Most buyers have not looked at a paper map in a decade. They are buying the capability, not the habit. That gap, capability without skill, is a problem the 1% does not have. What unites these 9 items is a single behavioral root. Every one of them was purchased to reduce anxiety, not to solve a logistics problem. Water for control, batteries for light, bread for normalcy, cash for transaction capability, manual tools for contingency, medications for imagined illness, fire starters for tonight, formula for social conscience, maps for orientation. 9 different items. 1 driver. The 99% is buying the feeling of preparedness. That feeling peaks around hour 3 and crashes around hour 6 when the second wave begins. The second wave is different. It is where the thinking starts and where the list gets interesting. The second wave does not announce itself. It starts quietly, around hour 2, when a different kind of person walks into a store that has already been hit by the emotional buyers. These people move differently. They are not grabbing, they are scanning. They know the obvious shelves are stripped, and they are not headed there. They are looking for the 8 things the first wave missed entirely. Item 10, fuel. Not just gasoline, all fuel. Propane canisters, camping fuel, kerosene, lighter fluid in quantity. The behavioral logic here is operational. Wave 1 buyers grabbed fire starters. Wave 2 buyers understand that a lighter is useless without sustained fuel. Propane canisters at hardware and sporting goods stores report stock out within 3 to 4 hours of a confirmed grid event. A single 1-pound propane canister provides roughly 2 hours of cooking heat. Do the math for a week. Item 11. Water storage containers. Not water. Containers. Collapsible jugs, 5-gallon buckets with lids, food-grade storage vessels. This is the item that reveals the gap between emotional buying and operational thinking most clearly. Wave 1 buyers purchase bottled water in whatever packaging it came in. Wave 2 buyers understood that the real constraint is not the water you can carry out of a store. It is the water you can collect and store once municipal pressure drops. Empty containers are worth more than full ones you cannot replenish. Item 12. Portable water filtration. Pump filters, gravity filters, chemical purification tablets, household bleach in concentrated form. Gone by hour 4 in any serious event. The math is non-negotiable. 3 days without water, and the scenario ends. Municipal water systems run on electric pumps. When the grid fails, pressure drops within hours, and tap water reliability becomes uncertain within days. A quality gravity filter can process 1,500 liters before replacement. That is one person's water supply for over 4 years. That filter weighs less than 2 pounds. The people who grabbed it in hour 3 are not thinking about tonight. They are thinking about month 2. Item 13, communication equipment, specifically battery-powered and hand-crank radios capable of receiving no-way weather and emergency broadcasts. Cellular networks overload within 90 minutes of a major event, as every device in range attempts simultaneous connection. The towers that remain operational are overwhelmed. A $17 hand-crank emergency radio receives signals that require no tower, no subscription, and no grid power. It is the only reliable source of coordinated information when every other channel fails. Stores that carry them typically stock fewer than a dozen units. They are gone before most people think to look. Item 14, prescription medication supply extensions. This one requires a specific action, not a purchase. In the first hours of a confirmed grid event, most pharmacies will authorize emergency supplies of maintenance medications, blood pressure, diabetes management, cardiac medications, without a new prescription. This window closes fast. Pharmacies lock down their controlled substance inventories early and reduce dispensing as staff evacuates. The people who understand this do not go to the store at hour 4. They go to the pharmacy at hour 1, before the Wave 1 crowd finishes at the grocery store. This is not on most lists. It should be first. Item 15. Tarps, rope, and heavy-duty plastic sheeting. What the 99% sees, camping supplies. What the 1% sees, weatherproofing, water collection infrastructure, signaling equipment, privacy barriers, and emergency shelter material in a single aisle. A standard 8x10 polyethylene tarp costs $4. In a grid event lasting more than 72 hours, it becomes the most versatile piece of material you own. Rainwater collection alone. A tarp of that size angle into a container can yield multiple gallons per inch of rainfall. That is not a camping trick. That is a water production system that costs $4 and weighs 14 ounces. Item 16. Isopropyl alcohol and wound care supplies. Not as medicine, as infrastructure. Every grid event that extends beyond 72 hours sees a spike in wound infection as minor injuries go untreated in the absence of functioning medical facilities. Isopropyl alcohol at 70% concentration is the most effective topical antiseptic available without a prescription. It does not expire meaningfully within a decade. It has secondary uses as a fuel source, a cleaning agent, and a disinfecting solution for water containers. Stores carry it in quantity, but it is stripped in Wave 2 because the people buying it understand something the Wave 1 crowd missed. In a prolonged event, infection kills faster than hunger. Item 17. Printed local maps and physical documentation copies. Here is what most people see. A dusty road atlas in the back of a gas station rack, irrelevant in an age of GPS. Here's what you should see. The only navigation system that functions when every cell tower is overloaded. Every GPS app requires data, and every digital document is locked behind a dead battery. A current county map costs $3. A laminated copy of your critical documents, insurance, identification, property records, medical history, costs nothing to prepare in advance and is irreplaceable when the systems that store digital versions go dark. This is the item that separates people who survive an event from people who spend years recovering from one. It weighs nothing. It is everywhere right now and gone within 6 hours of any serious confirmation. Every item on this list disappeared for the same reason. Not because people are irrational, because they are predictably rational under fear, and fear optimizes for the feeling of safety before it optimizes for actual survival capability. Water, batteries, bread, feeling safe. Fuel, filtration, communication, wound care, maps, being safe. The distance between those two categories is the distance between the 99% and the 1%. Now here is the dark part. Knowing this list and doing nothing with it before an event is functionally identical to not knowing it. The information has no value in the parking lot at hour 1. It has enormous value on a Tuesday afternoon when nothing is happening and you have 30 minutes in a hardware store nearby. The 20-minute operational window, the window where a prepared person can move through all 17 categories before stockout, only exists for people who already know the sequence, already know their nearest source for each item, and already have a route. That window does not exist for people who are learning the list at the same moment they need to execute it. This is the reconnaissance ask. Not tonight's shopping trip. 30 minutes. Open a map. Locate your nearest source for each of the 17 categories. Note the hours, the inventory depth, the route from your home. Write it down on paper, not in your phone, on paper. That document is your 20-minute execution plan. It costs nothing. It requires no special equipment, no unusual purchases, no commitment to any ideology about what the future holds. It is simply the work of paying attention to infrastructure that has always been there. Here is your choice right now. You can close this out, tell yourself you found this interesting, and file it somewhere in your memory alongside every other preparedness concept you have encountered and never acted on. You will remember approximately 30% of it in a week. You will remember almost none of it under stress. Or you can open a new tab right now and spend the next 30 minutes doing the reconnaissance. Locate the sources, write the list. Build the plan that makes the 20-minute window real instead of theoretical. One of those people watches events unfold and wishes they had moved sooner. The other one moves first, quietly without competition, and is home before the parking lots fill. The sequence is mechanical. The window is real. The only variable is whether you did the work before the confirmation came.